Hi, Chris Duff over at Serious Land Capital, vacant land funding partner. So today, and really over the past few days, been reflecting more on the state of the market, especially where things may be going from a residential real estate perspective. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of folks that are talking about this. I know the YouTube channel Reventure. Sorry, I forget the guy's name who runs that, but he has the Reventure app, and a lot of clickbaity titles, but solid data, just mainly on home sales across the country, and how there's a lot of trepidation across not the entire country, but a good portion of it, especially the areas of the country that have been perceived to be hotter and were hotter for much of the period of time during COVID and the first few years after COVID, where there's just been a greater inventory of homes available and prices that are just too high for the average consumer. And that's all coupled with various demographic issues where the average age of the home buyer has increased dramatically, even over the past decade, less than a decade, and where less established households have kids too. That's been declining for decades as well. So, spacing is less of a concern for a greater proportion of human beings within the U.S. How does that come into play with a demand for housing? So you have, a couple of negative pressure points with homes being too expensive in relation to wages, and a lack of having children. That's also impacting the need for more space for your residence. Now, is every single person or couple without kids content in living in a multifamily or condo or just space restricted setup for the rest of their lives? I don't know the answer to that. It makes it easier, sure. I can relate being a parent with a kid, hopefully another one soon enough, where the space helps a ton. Whereas if it was just my wife and I, we just don't need that much space comparatively, more of a luxury if anything. So trying to keep that in mind here. And also, I mean, some of this is actually being reflected within the market caps of home builders. I know the new builds were increasing as a percentage of total home sales, pretty dramatically over the last 5 years. I mean, there was a lock-in effect, the existing housing. Once interest rates rose, people didn't want to move. And so it was, the home builders coming in to fill that gap. But if you look at pretty much any of the large home builders, look at their market caps since, roughly December of last year. It's only less than a couple months old, pretty dramatic dips. I mean, we're talking 20, 25% reduction in their stock price here. So I think some more of the savvy investors are taking into account some of this information and seeing, are we overbuilding in some areas? And even if we're not necessarily overbuilding, these prices for these homes are just unsustainable here. To me, it's more of that latter point, looking at it, because even with the reduction in children in the country, we're still on a net population growth curve within the U.S., and that'll probably stay that way for at least the next few decades, if not, the rest of this century. It gets a little cagey to predict that far out, but, the next 2 to 3 decades seems pretty certain that that's going to be the case, barring some, black swan event or, dramatic change in regulations and governance. So inevitably, more affordable housing is just necessary. I mean, that point is just repeated ad nauseum constantly. So, regardless of the demographic shifts and price points of residences, ultimately we need to build more efficiently. And, while each residential unit may just feel the pressure of the market to come down, the volume theoretically could make up for that by providing more people more affordable housing. And, if that's the case, maybe more folks will feel more inclined to have children and want that extra space. The world and the future is built by optimists. That's been the that's a tale as old as humanity. You can either take the more hopeful, not Pollyannish look, but you can bet on the future and bet on positivity, and oftentimes be rewarded for it. Sometimes you pay the price, but again, more than often, looking at the past few thousand years of recorded history, the optimists win out and provide step function growth for our species as a whole here. So us as land investors, do we consider land to still continue being a scarce resource, and that more of it will be needed for affordable housing and what appears to be the consistent population growth of the country, at least for the next generation, likely more? Then we have to continue to double down with an understanding of the macro risks that are behind us, that are certainly a headwind, but do we have more of a tailwind in our direction here? So I'm more in the latter camp, that our thesis as quicker turnaround land investors on average, we're looking at doing more value add, longer term projects, lending on them accordingly. So, there's more inherent risk to that, more reward, but, more risk. So that's how it goes. But, on the shorter term, where you're still buying at, large enough discounts to the market and really being diligent about comping out your properties and understanding where the market is, today versus speculating on the future or looking where it was, 2 or 3 years ago, that strategy is always going to pay off because the fundamentals are strong regardless of what the underlying macro market has done. I mean, those of us who've been in land since, 2020 or even a bit earlier, like look how many times, even on a 6-month basis, the land market has shifted with us. And again, if your fundamentals are strong, you can succeed. Buyer's market, seller's market, doesn't matter, because our turnaround cycles should be short enough to account for any real underlying market. But yeah, those longer term plays have to be more cautious. But the strategy overall, even accounting for all those macro factors that I'm mentioning, we have to stay focused as a country on providing affordable housing. It's one of the biggest unlocks that is still available for us. And if we stay optimistic and stay focused on how to achieve that goal sustainably and provide better lives in both a quality and quantity standpoint for our fellow citizens and immigrants that we welcome in, then I think that is still the ultimate bet to make here. And that is where we are putting, both our words behind as well as our money. So that's ultimately what matters. I just wanted to share some of those thoughts. Of course, you're looking for funding, seriously.capital. And daily diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals Mondays and Thursdays, and also landpricer.ai for the most simple and accurate way to price land deals. Take care, everybody. Bye.